in the meeting, and I'd like to move that we accept an apology from Councillor Scandrick for lateness. Have a seconder, please. Sam McDonald. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That is carried. I'd now like to move that we resume standing orders that the Council resolved that the standing orders that we suspended are now reinstated. Do I have a seconder for that? Andrew, I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That is carried. So this is a reconvened council meeting from Monday the 21st of June. At that meeting, the council adopted the Auditor Christchurch Climate Resilience Strategy and then moved on to the long-term plan. We debated and voted on the Mayor's recommendations, the Chief Executive's recommendations and all amendments put forward by councillors. The meeting today is to debate and vote on the Mayor's final recommendation, which is M25 rates, and then to adopt the long-term plan, all the associated documents and set the rate. I will also table the blue amendments as requested on Monday, which councillors have and will be available on our website later today. We are going to deal with one item prior to the rates debate. So there are going to be two debates today. So we're going to, first of all, we're going to pass the resolution in relation to the Capital Endowment Fund, and I'll get staff to speak to that when we get to it. And then we will move to a debate on the setting of the rates. So that's one debate. We will then pass the resolutions that are required to be passed in terms of the Local Government Act, and then receive the audit report and debate and adopt the LTP. So there will be a second debate. That's the overarching one where you can really traverse a range of the issues. The rates debate is a general debate as well, as I'm sure there are consequences around all of those. So I thought that I was going to be inviting Andy Burns up to the table first for a verbal update on the Auditor's report. Thank you.
Okay, good morning everybody. Not a lot more to say really. It's just kind of read Tuesday as today. Read Monday as today. We're aware of the amendments that have been made, the change been made to the long-term plan, and have seen those and we're comfortable. I have today an unqualified opinion that will be adopted along with the long-term plan. I suppose the music's still playing, so I'm assuming you're going to adopt what you have before you today, but the same principle applies. That's probably all I need to say, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'm suspecting that there are no questions because there is no change. Right. Thank you very much for that. And if we could perhaps have an update from staff, please.
Yeah, so we just wanted to quickly talk about the Capital Endowment Fund. The reason why we have moved this resolution to the front before you approve the rates increase is it's because it has a fundamental impact on your rates number. So just a quick recap on the Capital Endowment Fund for new members if they're not aware. So the Capital Endowment Fund was set up in April 2001. It was a $75 million fund that came out of the Orion sale of the investment arm of Orion, and it has always been, as part of the fund, it's always been inflationary adjusted, so which means that we're taking the capital to try and increase the capital each year to actually protect the fund. That happened continuously up until the earthquakes. After the earthquakes, obviously the need from the community of requiring funding the decision had been made off and on, not through the whole period after the earthquakes, to not inflationary adjust for that. In later years also too, interest rates have dropped so low because essentially any money that the fund earns, some of it has to go to capital to inflationary adjust it, and the rest can be allocated for funds. What this resolution is requires an 80% majority to choose not to inflationary adjust the Capital Endowment Fund. Okay, it's currently at 100 million capital. So if you do not 80% majority approve this resolution, that means either we need to take $1 million out of your budget or we need to increase general rates by 0.2. That is why we need the decision for this before we approve the rates increase.
Thank you. So I'd like to move the Capital Endowment Fund resolution. Do I have a seconder for that? Sarah? And are there any questions of staff? Is there any debate? I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And
I've consistently voted against it, so it's just...
James Goff, and abstention from Aaron Kewen. So that is an 80% meeting of the obligation. So thank you very much, councillors, for that. Now we'll move on to the rates increase. I will move that council approves the rates increase and forecasts for future years as set out, seconded by Andrew. And are there any questions? I'll open it up for debate. And I just want to refer to a matter that was contained in the introduction to my report back after the consideration of the submissions. I said that there are no easy comparisons in local government given the disparate size of the 67 councils, and it is difficult, but even when we look at the cities, we're the second largest after Auckland. When you look at property values in different parts of the country, when you look at environmental considerations, when you look at infrastructure profiles, which we're starting to see the reality of in terms of the three waters and the work that central government has been doing to look at 67 different councils, holding the average rates increase just below 5% has not been possible for several of our counterparts. So I just wanted to acknowledge the significance of having been able to achieve that. It's not easy. There are balances that are sought in all of these situations. And of course, the impact of the COVID pandemic on our council and on our residents has been significant. So there was a real desire around the table to seek a balance. Now, I know that some people will feel that we haven't managed to get that rates increase down far enough, and there will be others who'll say, well, under the circumstances, the balance is about right. We do need to continue to invest in our infrastructure, and that's infrastructure across the board. I know that a number of people have raised with me, you know, the extent of the investment that we continue to make in our three waters infrastructure, given the uncertainty that lies ahead. But I don't think that we can sit back as a council and say central government's going to be making a decision about our three waters at some stage in the future, and that may impact on who takes control of the decision making. We actually have to continue to push for the infrastructure changes that will enable us to restore our chlorine-free status, and that still remains an objective of this council. And we still have to put the investment into wastewater and stormwater. When we sit around this table and we think, you know, in the past to allowing, for example, discharges into harbours, discharges and overflows into rivers, and the impact that has, that is the past. It isn't the future. We have obligations in terms of our environmental considerations that really will extend beyond any of the decision making that might be made in the future. So I'm very much supportive of the need for that level of investment. I know that there's been a lot of debate around cycleways, And, you know, I think there's almost a view being expressed in some quarters that there is no investment in our roading and our footpaths. We are making a major investment in our roading and footpaths, nearly $1 billion over the 10 years. It is a significant investment and is absolutely required as well. So there are, in all of these instances, when we go through the LTP process, I remember the first LTP where I sat at the head of the table, where we had discovered on arriving here a $400 million hole in the budget that was disguised as savings to be found, and of course an insurance claim that was nowhere near settled. We have come a long way, and I'm really grateful for everyone who made submissions to the LTP process and have contributed in some way to making our community special. So I shall open it up for debate. Sarah.
Thank you, and thanks to everyone involved actually. This is the most thorough process that we've seen yet. We've seen line by line of capital and operational expenditure, allowing each of us to see where savings or additional spending were warranted, where we could make changes if we chose. We spent around 90 hours in workshops going over the budgets to inform the draft long-term plan, with feedback from the annual plan and the latest residents' survey fresh in our minds, and we added significant funding to roading, footpaths and water reticulation ahead of consultation. We could have chosen to add additional funding in so many areas, but chose not to try and keep a balance between investing and keeping rates affordable. Submissions were generally supportive of this direction of travel. They mostly said that they understood the need for a rates increase, but they wanted the money to be spent wisely. The rates increase that we've got to for the next financial year is lower than what we went out with, and for those in low value properties, they see the lowest increase, and they can access additional support if they have low incomes. And let's remember that the reason the rates are higher than we'd like to see in years 3 to 5 is due to the stadium, which will nudge up rates by 2.9% all on its own, significantly higher than the cycleways. This LTP is at the end of the earthquake budgets, but it's also been in the context of a global pandemic, and to keep rates to under 5% has been an enormous effort. It's significantly lower than other urban councils, and staff have been amazing throughout, with hundreds of questions answered and a stack of advice given. Savings have been found by efficiencies or cuts, and many have worked weekends or evenings to get this all together. Thank you. I think I'll leave that for there, the rest for the next debate.
Yeah, Sam.
Yeah, thanks very much. And I would start, like I normally do with these, acknowledging the Chief Executive and her team working through this. I think I agree with Sarah that the process has been actually quite good. We've had a few sort of speed bumps this week, but we'll deal with that kind of thing. But I think that's probably the issue with the council, is we talk a lot about process and not about the outcome. And so from a really high level, we can talk about the hours we've spent and all the time we've worked together and all the questions of us. But if from the outset we say, what's the goal? And for me, the goal is minimising the additional cost to ratepayers. I don't think we've achieved this. I mean, it's nice we're under 5%, but comparing us to other councils I don't think is a great benchmark. They're out of control as well. In my view, we needed to be far more disciplined with this, and we had a real opportunity in the LTP to reset this impact on the city for the long term, and I don't think we've achieved that. You know, if incomes were raising at 5%, then potentially we could live with that, noting that's the average. A lot of the people that I represent will suffer a rates increase far in excess of this for in fact, probably less service than they get compared to other parts of the city. So it's an incredibly inequitable system, which I think penalises people who work hard every day and who effectively are the silent majority. So I'm not convinced that this rate increase is something we should be proud of. In fact, it's quite the opposite. But I come back to that fundamental point. We shouldn't be talking about process, we should be talking about outcomes for the city. And until we change our mindset around this table, we're going to be doing no better for our residents and ratepayers.
Andrew.
Thank you. I'd like to start also by acknowledging colleagues and Dawn and the staff of the organisation for what really has been a very collaborative approach as we've put this long-term plan together. Today's meeting is the culmination of many, many months of work, many, many months of hard work. I'm pleased that we've been able to keep the rates increase at below 5%. Clearly, with some of the amendments that went through on Monday, there was a need for restraint around what amendments were put, and certainly there was. And I think the amendments that were passed really did reflect what we heard that was important to the people of Christchurch in the submissions that they wrote to us, and the things that people made the effort to come along and speak to. And I'd like to thank everybody in our community that took the trouble to write submissions, and particularly those people that took the time to come along and express their views by speaking to us in this council chamber. Now, whilst I'm saying that I'm pleased we've kept the rates increase under 5%, when we look at the future projected rates increase, I think that tells us that we've still got some work to do. It would be great to look at further reducing those future rates increases, and I think there's work that we can do in smoothing the capital programme. I think there's work that we can do in finding further savings and efficiencies both to capital and to operating expenses, realising that not all of those things will necessarily affect levels of service. And of course, the balance that we need to find here is between a number of levers, a number of different moving parts. And we often hear people saying, you know, we want to see the rates increases reduced. But at the same time, we've got people telling us that they don't want to see levels of service reduced. And it becomes very difficult to reduce rate increases without reducing what we're actually doing with the revenue that we're generating from rates. So finding the balance is what this is all about. And I think in, still an earthquake recovery environment, we've still got Blueprint Project, the Anchor Project, the Arena and Metro Sports having a significant effect on our capital programme. We've also got the greatly reduced dividends that we would naturally expect coming in from CCHL, which are affecting those revenues. And we're in a situation where in our last annual plan, as a matter of necessity, we had to take on additional borrowing, which has also put a burden of paying the interest on that borrowing in a way that we wouldn't naturally have expected. So in that set of circumstances, achieving a rates increase this year of below 5%, I do believe is an achievement. But I also believe that we've got further work to do to continue to focus on, as I've said before, bringing rates increases down to reflect the level of inflation over time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Melanie and Jimmy? Okay.
I didn't want to say too much here about the rates, but I did want to mention that it is a shame that this council wasn't keen to consult about reducing the uniform annual general charge, because lowering this to its limit would actually have an effect of reducing rates for up to 87% of households across all areas of our city. So it's something that we need to be considering in future years, and I really hope that we do that, because it will have great effects for all parts of the society.
Okay, Jimmy?
Sorry, Barbara, I'm waiting for a
Okay. All right. I'll put the motion. Aaron?
Yeah, I just want to mention a couple of things. Firstly, I'll actually salute Sam's speech there before. I think that was probably one of your best performances. You were like Kane Williamson coming into the crease then. So thanks for holding the line there for us, Sam. That is a reference to last night's performance as well in the cricket. I know most people here probably stayed up all night watching it, but it was good. That aside, I want to mention a couple of things. I think Christchurch is, I know New York claims the title of trying to be the greatest city in the world, but I think this city is. I think this city is an amazing, amazing city. It's a great city to live in. I'm incredibly proud to be a councillor for the people of Harewood. I love that. What I don't love is our performance as a council for this city at times. The recent survey proved that as a council we're not doing well enough, and it's only in certain aspects, because some of the aspects of this council, like libraries for instance, are an absolute star, And I want to salute libraries, because during this process, and the reason why I'm calling out that department is they actually offered up a lot of savings. If every part of the council had come, and they're our most popular, so maybe they did it knowing that you're not going to have a go at libraries because they are the most popular, but I think they were genuine. I think they got the memo. They come forward with a ton of savings. We didn't take most of them, and that is the bit that concerns me, is that a lot of staff did a lot of work to offer up some savings that this council wasn't that interested in taking up for whatever reason. Might not be that politically palatable, but a 5% rates rise is still triple the rate of inflation, and that's real inflation because the people paying it are subject to it, not the council inflation that we speak of, or government inflation. I mean, and when you talk about that, if we're going to have ex-Labour MPs as mayors, I want Grant next because he can print money and print it at a rate, and which puts our country into a debt at the moment that it's never been in before. And this council's also going into that territory, and it scares me the way that we have not gone out of our way to cut our cloth to where it really, really should be. Like I said, it is the greatest city in the world, but we're making it harder and harder for the residents of this city to live in. And I especially think of those in the last third of their life where they might be asset rich, but they are cash poor, many of them, and we're going to penalise them even more for choosing to live in the greatest city in the world. So I think it's about time that this council stopped acting like drunken sailors at a spending orgy and learnt to rein it in and take better care of the residents of this city.
Anne.
Kia ora. I also want to acknowledge the huge amount of work that has been put into getting us to this point today, and you don't want to sort of it's a team effort, absolutely, but Peter and Sam, particularly, just the work that you've done leading this and helping us, Sam, with all that you've done behind the scenes has been incredible, and thank you for that. So there are those here around this table who have approached this process with the single lens of cutting costs for the benefit of present-day ratepayers who will only benefit from a few extra dollars in their pockets. And in saying that, we all know the pain that rates increase have, especially for those on fixed incomes. Our council does provide rates relief, and I'm confident that there is that support there for people who need it. However, we're thinking about in having that lens, there is the risk, in fact, a very real risk of sacrificing investment in this city, which will benefit the children and grandchildren of the future. And in saying that, we are all aware of what that could mean. I also think that we've been very careful to think about that in terms of the debt that we may be putting on their shoulders going forward. And I think that we have done that, made these decisions with a very financially prudent lens. I think that this council, I want to stand with the majority here, who support a long-term plan and a rates increase which ensures sustainability, equity and well-being while still maintaining good levels of financial prudence. Many of us here have children and grandchildren. I have 3 grandchildren, and it's very likely that they will end up here in this city, either working or studying, and they will come to this city because of the great things that the city will offer, because of the decisions that we have made here as a council. I will be proud to say to them that I was part of this council in 2021 that had this long-term lens that meant that they can flourish in this great city. So this is about investing in our future, and so even though we know that rates increases will hurt, this is for the long term, and I'm pleased that I'm sitting with you, the majority of you who see that. Thank you.
Pauline?
Yeah, I did listen to you. Mislead us to believe that only the libraries came forward offering up savings. You remember the work we did pouring through every single level of activity in this council, and every department came through with savings. And in the end, I think we found we were around 27.4 million. So I don't want to belittle those hours and hours of work that we did, Aaron, to find these savings. We have cut our cloth. If we cut it any smaller, the suit wouldn't go anywhere near fitting, and that would not be a good look at all. And I absolutely endorse the comments of Anne Galloway that we have to keep going for our future, keep the projects going, keep the jobs going, keep the economy going, and build our future for our people. We consulted on something like 5.56. We've come in well under that. People did not come in here complaining about the rates increase this time. They had a really good overview of how we struck a rate, what it was for, where our income came from and where our expenses went. So I think that coming in under what we went out with is a real plus for us, and I think we've done really well. Thank you.
I shall, James.
Kia ora tātou. I wasn't going to say anything either until my the previous female colleagues had their say. Look, because I want to support them, particularly Councillor Galloway and her vision of her children, her grandchildren, and it takes us to that ngaitahu whakatauki, which is mō tātou a mō kauri a muri ake nei, which is for us and for our children and their children after us. That's what this is about. And I'll acknowledge Councillor MacDonald and your comments. I agree with you to the point where you're saying that we should be focusing on outcomes rather than process. Process is part of it, but the focus, I agree, should be on outcomes. And then you touched on the fact that we are making this decision today, and the majority are likely to be going down the path of the long-term plan, that we have amended subsequent submissions, some of them very passionate, and we're going to be making that decision today. But in 15 months' time, there's going to be an opportunity for ratepayers, residents and people to make changes at this table. So I look forward to that, because I'm going to be on the other side of the table in 15 months' time. So, look, I started by referring to my previous female colleagues, Councillor Galloway and Cotter, and I fully support what they've said in the last few moments. Thanks. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thank you. All right. I shall. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. No. That's carried. So we'll record them, but we'll record it as a division. So those opposed, put up your hand, and we'll record it as a division. Them all?
Chew, McDonald.
Yep. And can I assume that everyone else is voting for it and not abstaining? Thank you. Okay, that is carried. Thank you very much. So now we move on to some technical amendments, which are the adopting the summary of the rates impact, adopting the proposed changes to the capital program, adopting the proposed changes to the operating expenditure, adopting the revenue and financing policy, adopting the amended rates remission policy, adopting the funding impact statement, financial strategy and infrastructure strategy, and adopting the minor changes and errors set out in attachment M. So that's all the attachments, D to D, E, F, G, P, H, I, J, and M. So I'll move that, and seconded by Andrew, and I'll put that motion.
Are we able to have our votes recorded against individual ones of those?
Yes.
Yep.
So
and when's the
probably
chance to
the
speak to
easiest thing would be to do is if people could just let me know whether they want their name recorded against any of these individual.
Yeah, so mine would just be 5, 6 and 7.
5, 6 and 7 for Sam, and is that the same for Catherine, James?
Yeah, well,
Phil,
I was just going to vote against the whole thing, but if you want to do it separately, 5, 6, 7 is fine.
5, 6, 7?
5, 6, 7 against.
Yep. Yep. And Phil?
So, and I wanted my vote against 6, 7, 9 and 10. I think that's
Yep. 6, 7, 9 and 10.
And there's a number. Yeah, there's a number of other ones further down. Are you putting all those as well?
No, I'm just doing
just
this
the ones
block.
on the screen. Okay.
Yep. All right, so I will put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no, and record it as per the notification. Thank you. And now we move on to uh,
10 to 14.
what is it? 12
to 14.
12 to 14. So I'll move that. Seconded by Andrew. And right, so so that's the noting that it is not financially prudent to set these levels in terms of Section 100 of the Local Government Act, noting the debt servicing financial prudence benchmark is breached in the 3 years, but no concern around the council's ability to service the debt, and agrees to provide debt funding to CCHL from time to time and to borrow from LGFA for that purpose, provided the conditions are met. So that's been moved and seconded. Now, I'll just say all those, I'll record the individual ones that people want to note against. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And
Just 12 and 13 for me, Sam.
12 and 13.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 12 for me. Thanks.
12 for
Yanni.
Yanni.
Anyone else?
12 and 13 for
12
Alan.
and 13, 12 and 13,
Phil's
12 and
the same.
13. Yep.
Yeah.
And
So
James.
same.
And Catherine.
Yep. And James.
I do agree with the powers, it's not prudent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it, I'm surprised. I'm surprised that you're disagreeing with the motion, actually, under the circumstances. But anyway.
It's a noting one, so it's
No, the first one. I'm sure you agree. So the next one is 15 and 16.
additional years as well. It's a
So
10-year plan.
I will. Oh, now this is the adoption of the long-term plan. So,
15.
do you want to do 15 first? So, this is just receiving the audit report as required by the Act. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Oh, sorry, me and Andrew. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And now I will move that we adopt the 2021-31 long-term plan, seconded by Andrew. And I'll open it up for debate. A lot of the things that I was going to say, I mentioned when we talked about rates, and I just wanted to mention the whakatauki that sits at the front of the forward to the Mayor's recommendations for this. And I just want to read not the whakatauki, but I might call on one of my council colleagues to do that for me, but to talk about what it means. Planning, dedication and skill is required to produce the proper tool, and with the proper tool you can shape the future. And the intent of this particular LTP is to reflect where we are now, 10 years on from the devastation of the earthquake of the 22nd of February, and all of the other challenges that we've had to confront since then, which is why we asked the organisation to embed risk and resilience into the long-term plan. Now, risk and resilience is not a populist headline. It's a very strategic way of thinking. You've got to understand what the risks are and you've got to embed resilience not just within your infrastructure, but within communities. And I've reflected on this more than once in the series of debates that we've had, is the number of communities who stepped up, came forward, and did not come with an ask of their council. They came recognising that they are the city of Christchurch or the Banks Peninsula, and they said, we want to partner with you in order to achieve better outcomes for our future. And the tools are there. The tools are in our community. Central government doesn't have to do it for people. Local authorities don't have to do it for people. When people come together as communities, either of interest or communities geographically located together, come together and work in partnership with their local authority or with central government, so much more can be achieved. And once people realise that they have this incredible sense of competence within their communities, they are emboldened, and there is so much more that they can achieve. I noted after the earthquakes that so many communities, they didn't wait for someone to come. They gathered together, they organised their own food distribution systems, they organised themselves in ways that no government could ever do for communities. And that is what lies at the essence of building resilience within our communities, but also being mindful of the risks that lie ahead. We don't know the detail of when certain things will happen, when sea level rise will hit a particular level, but we do know that the impacts of it are already being felt in terms of drought conditions and flooding, increased intensity and frequency of storm events. That is going to become even more severe. The amount of investment that we have made over the last decade in our infrastructure, I can't count the number of messages that I have received from people who have expressed gratitude for the investment that has been made. Now, that is not the investment of council money, that is investment of the city's financial resources in ensuring that we're more resilient than we were just over a decade ago. So I think that the planning, dedication and skill, which we've seen from the organisation, we've got a relatively new chief executive. This is her first long-term plan. She's agreed to stay on for another one. So I think that what we're going to be able to do is build on this. This is a building block for the future. So I'm very pleased to recommend it to Council. Pauline.
Hey, look, firstly, I would like to recognise the high quality of the consultation document. It contained robust information which was clearly presented, and that's no easy task. And this has been reflected in the higher standard of submissions. Residents definitely had a clearer understanding of council projects and funding, and they presented more holistic comments. So thanks to the comms team led by Di Keenan for that. But for me, there were definite standout themes. There was the environment, water, climate resilience, biodiversity, and keep going with the cycleways and community partnerships. But funnily enough, these themes are all interconnected. They're all codependent. I'm so pleased that we have managed to produce a long-term plan that is able to support all of these. Our various partnership funds will resource the many volunteers stepping up to enhance our waterways and our environment all over the city. We've set aside $3 million for the co-creation of a community centre at 10 Shirley Road, and what this looks like will emerge over time from that community. We will invest $2.3 billion in our Three Waters program, even though there's talk of the government's Three Waters reform idea. That's to remove the Three Waters delivery and assets from all councils in New Zealand. And this will be a hard sell idea in my prediction. However, in the meantime, our focus is on the delivery of safe drinking water and the improvement of the receiving environment for stormwater and wastewater. a program of work ably led by Helen Beaumont, with clear reporting back through Council on our milestones. And I can say that we've made huge improvements to our Three Waters infrastructure, and we have collated supporting data to support that. Our cycleways are a massively important contributor to reducing our emissions, and submitters told us to keep going or even speed up the program and take full financial advantage of the Waka-Kotahi 50 to 70% subsidy. And why on earth wouldn't we? And I've said this before, I'll say it again, the 13 major cycleway routes that emanate from our central city is one project. Until that is completed, we will not see the true benefit. And finally, biodiversity, something that's flown slightly under the radar, but it's essential we invest in our ecosystems, our amenity and our identity. And our willing community groups and organisations will achieve biodiversity environmental outcomes and increase resilience through partnership programs. So I'm pleased to see the support for the $400,000 fund for the partnership program and the reinstatement of the pest control fund, because these work together. Unless we control the pests, the plantings will die, the work is wasted. It's our duty to support a program of ecological restoration in our regional parks. We've got to step up now or we'll lose the things that are hanging on by a thread. And our waterways partnership the same, equally important. So if we don't nurture nature, we will have no future. And in conclusion, we've struck a rate under 5%. We have a program of works that will address climate resilience, enhance and restore our environment, provide jobs, enable volunteers and partnerships, and ensure Christchurch is on track to become the most livable 21st century city in New Zealand, if not the world.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. So what is the goal for this LTP? What is the outcome that we are after? It was clearly expressed in the letter of expectations to our CE, and it was expressed in our strategic directions that we all signed off well ahead of the long-term plan. Ensuring our core business is done while delivering on our strategic priorities, enabling active and connected communities, meeting the challenge of climate change, ensuring a high-quality water supply, accelerating momentum in the city, and keeping rates affordable. We need to have all 5 of these, and we need to balance them, as to do only one clearly impacts on the others. And we heard clearly from our residents that they wanted us to prioritise this work and to keep our levels of service. The advice from the Independent Climate Commission is clear. We need to act now to avoid the worst environmental and social impacts of climate change, and acting now is in the best interests of our economy, our residents, and our planet. It's a win-win-win. The latest research out of the Otago University just this week is clear that as we cut carbon, we'll live longer, we'll spend more money, we'll take fewer sick days, and we will work more productively. In fact, the researchers think it's likely the country will see a net positive gain to our GDP. This LTP now proposes more resourcing for climate action in targeted areas: transport, education, sequestration and adaptation, on partnerships and on leadership. It prioritises water, and we've also made moves to start addressing our biodiversity crisis with increased funding for ecosystem protection and ecological restoration in partnership with our communities. And finally, to the submitters, thousands of residents, as individuals or in groups, have told us what they'd like us to prioritise, and we have made a stack of changes based on that feedback. We have had more input from young people than ever before, and such fantastic, thoughtful and constructive input from our many residents groups. Please keep feeding in during the many consultations we do. You ensure our decisions are grounded in our communities. Thank you. Success is not the work of one, but the work of many. E hara taku toa, e te toa takatihi. E ngāri he toa takitini. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Oh, sorry, I was going to go around the table, wasn't I? James, did you want to?
No, I'll bide my time.
Right, I'll come back to you. Aaron.
Am I allowed to bide time?
Oh, I'm happy.
Yeah, I know. I was supposed to. I was going to go around the table and I forgot, so my apologies. But just to give you a moment to reflect, I'll let Jake speak and then we'll come back down the table.
I didn't think I'd be doing Councillor Kewen a favour on LTP Adoption Day, but that's okay. Look, I'm happy with the balance. I'm happy with the balance that we've struck.
One team,
overall.
one dream, Jake.
I'm happy with the balance that we've struck overall, and I'm pleased to support the LTP's adoption today. Obviously, passing on a 5% rate increase isn't fun. It sucks, quite frankly, and I'm certainly not one of those councillors that's going to call it a cup of coffee a week. I think that's glib. This has been a really good process, and I want to thank the CE for that. We've certainly had line by line oversight over all of the spending decisions, but having said that, and I hate to be a wee bit negative, it's not been a perfect process, and I think there's things we could do better next time. I think that we could look at pulling more of those briefings into the public realm as other cities do, and I think this city of all should be cognisant of making sure we're seen to be open and transparent. And I think the consultation document as well, I mean, there were things in that. There were things that people submitted on that we weren't able to implement, and which is a shame, and I think that means it speaks to an imperfect consultation document. And next time round, when more than a handful of people want to open up a conversation, be it on UAGC or on the reduction of cycleways, then we need to be cognisant that our consultation document is actually robust enough to enable that discussion. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. James, we'll come back to you.
Kia ora tātou. Look, this has been a really interesting process with an outcome that we're discussing today. However, it's my first LTP decision, and it's my last actually, or will be my last. And so timing is everything. But the thing is that what concerns me about normal, average people, because I was quite unaware of a lot of how this all comes about, and I think that a lot of residents are, and I think we need to upskill and communicate much better with our community to let them know how all of this works, because it's people who know how to submit, when to submit, and so on. They get they make the big noise, and there are a lot of those people that we call the silent majority that have no interest, but then they end up having to pay their rates. And this is the thing that I learnt over the last couple of years is central government taxes us, but they take the money before we see it. The problem with this is that we send an invoice out for our rates, and people go, what the hell? And yet these rates, I'll bet, for most people, are lower than their electricity bill. And they don't have a big moan about, well, they do, but they can't have any say in their electricity bill, apart from changing companies. So, you know, that's at the heart of it for me. I hadn't thought of it that way, but I think we need to communicate much better as to how this all happens, why it's happening, and then I think we'll have a better relationship with our community, which concerns me, I've got to say, and this doesn't help what we're doing today, but it's what we have to do. The relationship with the community, as we know, as Aaron Kewen has pointed out through the survey, is not great, but it can be better, and it won't be that hard. And once again, I say, in 15 months' time, there could be other people sitting around here. Kia ora. Oh, actually, the Mayor touched on the whakatauki at the top of this document, which is kia tūroa te ao. Literally, that means let's make the world stand for longer. And that whakatauki was the inspiration for Michael Jackson to write the words, heal the world, make it a better place for me and for you and the entire human race. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Tim, are you ready to speak? Or yeah, I'm been giving people that. Aaron.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, yeah, we've covered many things in this LTP. By far, the majority I agree with. Most things that the council deliver, I agree with. I think we overstep the boundaries a little. For me, it's not what we are spending the money on, it's just how we spend the money. And there's a number of things we go out, and I think we spend far too much on. Community facilities is one of them. A number of the community facilities, we're building at a square meterage rate comparable to a hospital. That is unacceptable. They're a community space for the community to use, and they don't care if it wins architectural awards or not. They just want to be able to use the space. So I think we need to rein in some of our spending there. There was obviously the cycle debate that never happened around the cycleways. Once upon a time, this city was going to build a network of cycleways in 5 years and build ones that were to cost $68 million. Good basic cycleways like most of the cities in the world have, and I think that would have won over the public, but instead a battle's been created between a cycling group and a lot of other people, and I think that battle should have never happened, and we should have had a lot more people on bikes by now. We, as a council, are working towards climate change. I think our work in that field is below average at best. It was pointed out during the submissions by Professor Greg Clydesdale that our anti-car policy has increased net oil usage. Just facts, that's all, but has increased because of, you can't just have an ideology when it meets the human race. It just doesn't work. You have to take people along the journey with you, and our original cycleway program, I believe, would have done that. Just spending more on buses doesn't get more people on buses. The Mayor referred to our changing environment. The environment's always changed. Oh no, there he goes, denying again. No, he's not. But the 6 greatest natural disasters in this country happened prior to this century. So it's happened before, that will happen again, and it will happen more frequently. So I do agree with that. If the science is correct and accurate, the timing may change a little, but the world will become a tougher place to live in. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree that pollution is an incredibly bad thing and we need to lower it. But some of our behaviours and the decisions we're making are backwards thinking. When we look at our transport network, we don't go, how do we move the most people and the most freight as efficiently as possible? We go, no, we'll have behaviour change. They'll all get on a bike or they'll all get on a bus. It's unrealistic for elderly people, for the disability community, for tradesmen. Like, have you ever tried biking along with 2.5 tonnes of bricks on the back of your bike? It doesn't work. Certainly don't want to hear that in here.
Right. Thank you. Tim.
Thank you very much. As we've sat through the hearings, we would have heard some people want everything, but everybody wants something. So around this table, we have to try and deliver the good because we will never get the perfect. And I think with the budgets that we have and the abilities that we have, we've struck a good medium. I do believe that through the next 10 years that we will have to review some of the decisions made today. One of those for me would be transport and the roading and the level of traffic going through those medium wards rather than where the growth is on the outside as those people travel through them to get to where they're going, whether it's work or whatever. In fact, just this morning with a meeting we had with the principals in the area, the number one concern is traffic. So it's not their school grounds, it's actually traffic, and that's our role working with Waka Kotahi, and I think that we'll have to pick more relationships with central government over specific projects as we go forward to try and A, deliver a better outcome, but B, do it more fiscally responsible. So I want to thank everybody that took part in sending in a submission and came and presented. We have listened. I have done so much reading over the last wee while that I don't even want to look at a book. But I'm really pleased with where we've got to with the restraints that we are under and we will be continuing under in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil.
Thank you, everybody. This is my first LTP, and I've been told by people who have been a lot longer than I, that thanks to Dawn's input, this is a far more in-depth and comprehensive LTP than we've ever had. And I'd like to thank Dawn and the staff for all the work that's been put in, and I can't wait till the next one. I am disappointed that we weren't able to achieve a lower rate rise for the city. A small group of us tried and to achieve this, but to no avail. If we had a a slightly larger group of councillors committed to cut spending in some areas, we could have made a much better result for the city going forward. Thank you.
Anne.
Kia ora. To follow on from Phil, it is a wee bit like having given birth with this today after a very long labour. Yeah, right, true. There is a connection. I just wanted to briefly say that talking with Peter, he talked about a looking forward LTP, and I think that's really what this is. And I'd also like to acknowledge the work that the Mayor has done in keeping the waka going in the same direction, even though there are many of us who wanted to row in different directions. You've kept it going to get to this point. But also, I think, Andrew, and the work that you have done to lead this with the skills required to manage both those in governance and on staff has been immense, and you've done a terrific job there, so thank you for that. And we need to keep the conversation going, as Sarah said. You know, we had some fantastic submissions and people came in, they took the time and we listened. We've got the mobile library still going, we've got library hours, we've, you know, back to, you know, where people want them to be. And so it's really encouraging, I hope, for people to see that we do listen, and we'll keep the conversation going through the annual plan process coming forward. So I want to thank you, everyone here, again, for the work that we've done to be able to get to this point, to collaborate, to listen, to talk, and obviously we won't all get what we want, but I think what we've come to today has been a really positive, long-term thinking LTP. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam.
Yeah, thanks. And I probably do want to start in agreement with Anne. It's a good opportunity, Leanne, to acknowledge you. I mean, as much as we all do have disputes around the outcome or how we get there, to be fair, you have kept us, I think, relative to other councils, on the straight and narrow. And I think we should acknowledge that in the sense that
it's not a high bar.
Public. No, I hope you had your mic on when you said that's not a high bar. Yeah. Look, there's probably just one thing I want to touch on. We've traversed a lot recently, and it's around the, I guess, the level of borrowing the council has and the capital delivery program. And you know, there'll be an argument. I can see it coming now, where they say, "Well, hang on, you want the borrowing to be a lot less, but you want to build a multi-use arena." But I want to just take everyone back a couple of days when we talked about the deferral of the cycleways, and we were quite deliberate. We were quite deliberate in terms of the criteria we set for that, which was we wouldn't stop the Crown funding that was coming in, and we wouldn't stop the ones that have already been let. So I just reflect on, or already contracted. So just reflect on when we look at the multi-use arena, the contracts we already have in place. The only point I really wanted to make, and I think it's something just worth bringing to the council's attention again, and I guess people do call me the cynical accountant around this stuff, but we're in an incredibly low interest rate environment at the moment. Our professional finance staff have flagged there's a moderate risk of a credit rating downgrade for us due to the level of borrowing we have on board. You know, that is numbers in a sense, and that it's a I guess a mark against your name, but it does have a financial implication as well. You know, the advice in here says that if this was to occur on our new borrowing, there'd be between 5 and 10% basis points increases on all that new borrowing. That's not an addition, or that is an addition, I guess, to the interest rate levels, or the interest rates going up over time. So I just, you know, I just want to bring that to everyone's attention again, is we do sort of talk about this stuff because there are genuine consequences for the city. And just to put a number on it, you know, the advice in here says that, you know, if that was to occur, that downgrade, that annually that's another $1.1 million before we even look at interest rate rises, which has a tangible here and now cost on the ratepayers. So, look, I don't agree with, you know, large parts of this LTP. I think there's a lot of it that actually the council do really well, and we should acknowledge that, and a lot of that basic services. But if we just stuck to our knitting, and I think, you know, really had more of a balance, we wouldn't see what I can see on the horizon, which is a far more heavily indebted, highly geared, high interest rate environment, which will have serious implications for the city. So I just want people to be really cognizant of that before we vote. Thanks.
Thank you. Catherine.
I just want to start by, again, thanking all the staff and you, Leanne, as well, throughout this whole process. It's been a very new process for me, and it was really interesting to go through it all. I just wanted to touch on just a couple of things really briefly. I know a lot of residents at times feel that a consultation process is just there as formality, and often we don't change anything, and I think we've seen quite clear examples this time that that's not the case. And we can see that with Wharenui Pool and Riccarton Bus Lounge in my ward, where people have come out and said, no, we want this open and we need it for the city, not just people in the Riccarton ward, but also people from across the city. So I see it as a huge win, not just for the Riccarton ward and residents, but also for the wider city as well. And I just wanted to thank all the councillors who supported that. I hadn't spoken on the rates, and I completely endorse and completely agree with Councillor MacDonald when he mentioned that the benchmark shouldn't be how we're doing compared to other councils. Instead, it should be, is the outcome right for our residents in Christchurch, and whether it's sustainable for the residents in Christchurch. And I'm not quite sure whether we've been bold enough, especially when we're going through the 10-year plan. So I would have liked us to have seen more bold initiatives to keep the rate sustainable for the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you. Melanie.
After the delayed annual plan last year, it feels like we've been working towards this long-term plan ever since, and probably we started it before, if I am right. Today is like the last ball of the last over of a cricket game that somehow lasted for nearly as many weeks as there should have been overs. Let's knock it out of the park. But seriously, our job as councillors in setting the budget is an important one with great responsibility attached to it. And I believe we've done our best as a team to balance our legislative responsibility to promote the social, economic, environmental and cultural well-being of our citizens and communities. We heard from submitters they had concerns about our draft long-term plan that went out for consultation. We listened, we heard, and we've made many changes to our plans and associated budget. For example, there were wins for those concerned about proposed changes to rates for emissions for charities, the land drainage targeted rate, strengthening communities funding, mobile library hours, although we are still cutting funding by 25% for resources, and the Riccarton Bus Lounge. Our citizens told us they want more spent on roads and footpaths. They want more cycling infrastructure faster. They want us to support public transport. They want more slower speeds in communities. We've delivered a budget capable of pushing all those things along. Our citizens told us they want clean water. We've put more on budget and are working as hard as we can to improve our three waters, especially to get chlorine out of our drinking water. Our citizens told us they want us to focus on climate change mitigation and adaptation. We agreed that we want to partner with a range of organisations to work on this. We will work on coastal hazards adaptation. We will support enviro schools and help people to understand how they can play their part. Our citizens also told us they want us to support work which decreases pests and increases biodiversity. I'm proud to say we've formed a budget that will deliver on this as well, with more urban park rangers, increased funding for Christchurch Biodiversity Fund, funding to work on identifying significant natural areas and funding to protect the ecology of our regional parks. There's been wins at community levels as well, such as our local Spraden Cashmere Community Board, and thanks for the support around Selwyn Street Master Plan moving forward and the Norwest Arc Cycleway connection from Westmoreland. And other communities have had successes too, such as the money on budget for 10 Shirley Road. Now, I know not all communities have got what they wanted or deserve, but we can always look at this in the future. The budget isn't perfect, but I think it's as good as we can expect, balancing everyone's opinions. The team of 5 didn't hit a 6 this year, but in my opinion, the first 11 has done a great job, particularly with all the amendments passed earlier this week. Go team, putting the 4 well-beings first is the right thing to do. To quote Gandhi, the best politics is the right action.
That's perfect. I don't think I've ever seen a councillor fit just so dot on the.
I was cutting words out as I went.
Well done. Yanni, that's your challenge now.
It's a noble one. First off, I just want to acknowledge the work that's gone into this, and just to acknowledge that we're at the start of a process with council. We just yesterday had a welcome to our new executive team, and we've got a relatively new chief executive. So I've heard the concerns that people have raised, and I share some of the concerns that people have raised against the rates increase. But I want to acknowledge if you've got a new team who's got a huge amount of work to do, who are right at the start of that journey, and I want to give them the chance to work with us to achieve the things that we want, which is what we heard yesterday. Just in regards to both the capital program and the operational program, which I voted against, I want to make it clear that councils need to have budget. We actually need a plan. So I don't think the option is to vote against the plan. It is actually to vote against the elements of the plan that you disagree with. And I want to go through a few things. One is, I don't believe our capital spend and our operational spend is focused enough on fixing the basics. We heard very clearly through submitters, and we heard very clearly through our resident survey, that things like roading need to be highlighted and have greater investment. The most concerning thing I think we've heard through this process is when we had briefings around the audit and risk, is that if we don't actually spend the money and fix our broken infrastructure, the cost to us as a council and to our ratepayers is far greater. And that's why I'm, although not happy with the rates increase, I understand the need for that money to be put on budget to fix our broken infrastructure. It is absolutely critical, and a false economy to save money on the basics now will have a much greater long-term cost. But things in the capital program that concern me, we're not investing in our water quality. There's an inability to improve waterway health due to the lack of investment in enhancement and biodiversity. We're only basically keeping it at the status quo rather than improving it. And we heard submitters saying they wanted us to focus on that. We've also put money on for the new multi-use arena, significantly additional money, and yet we've still got broken roads and broken infrastructure in the east. I don't think that priority is right. The other irony is we've heard from some people today around trying to cut costs. We've got rates funded money going to some of the wealthiest people in the city and the central city and for expensive houses, and yet we're not putting any money for our social housing. So I don't think those priorities are right. I think we need to look much more at local service delivery through our community boards. And I was really disappointed that a number of amendments, which I think were perfectly reasonable, have been ruled out of order as part of this process. So I hope when we review, we can actually get much better understanding of why things cannot be put. It seems entirely appropriate to me that if people through this public process have raised things in their submissions, asked us to spend money on or not spend money on, that we have every ability to weigh that up in our consideration. So I will be supporting the plan, but I have voted against those elements in terms of the capital program. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Jimmy Chen.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm confident, particularly regarding to this final version of the long-term plan. I will see the kind of reasons. First one, we are on the right track because in the beginning, on Monday, I particularly remind our mayor and our fellow councillors. Our council's strategic framework, we focus on the developing resilience in the 21st century. Our long-term plan, actually is for the implementation, for the achieving all of the four beings and the outcome. Then we can focus on this, the resilient the city. So I'm very confident. Second one, this long-term plan actually is totally compliant, consistent with the open and the democratic process. If we aware, on the 4th of March, we approved the draft of the long-term plan, and we received 2,382 those written submissions, and we heard 301 oral submissions. So this is a kind of open and democratic the process. So that's why I think I'm very confident, and also public, community, individual, they are also the public, even not every individual one can meet their needs, but we are all accept this open and democratic process. The third and also the key, the kind of point is a positive response to the submissions, like my fellow council, some of them particularly mentioned. First one is we put on the sufficient the budget for the implementation of the climate change. This is one of the strategic priorities. We need to meet all those climate change challenges. The other one, like written bus in the launch, we continue to keep because majority of people feedback to us, and also Wanganui, the poor, try to the partnership, steer the lease agreement, and put a sufficient operation cost. That can be the continue maintain, like land drainage, the target rate, and also the particular strengthen community funding. We not only stop those 5% cut, but we also increase the 2%. Why? Because the council always commitment ourselves. We would like to working together with the community to achieve our the common goal. That's very important. So that's why I'm very confident the final version of this strategic document, and we working together, focus on the embrace our future, the build this city as a 21st century resilient city. Thank you.
Thank you. James Scott.
Thanks. It's been the most comprehensive LTP that I've seen in terms of information supplied, so thank you, Dawn, as Chief Executive. Thank you to the Mayor. Thank you to each and every staff member. Thank you to the councillors, and thank you to every submitter that took the time to be a part of this process. That being said, I don't think I have been more dismayed at the content of an LTP than I am today. To put it simply, people want core business done before the ideological pet projects. The streets where they live flood every time it rains, and their suspension in their car is shot because of unfixed potholes on the road. They trip on the footpaths. They just want their rubbish emptied. We can't even make a change in this budget to stop the council double dipping and charging those in high density complexes for a rubbish collection service that they don't even receive. It's because a strategy's underway, but the strategy's been underway since 2015. Here's a strategy. Don't charge them for a service they don't receive. The Fennelton ward alone had 50 complaint calls to council because the rubbish collection truck just didn't bother to show up last month. But don't worry, the council will put on budget over $18 million to base isolate the Robert McDougall Art Gallery to be used for storage. It will be the most expensive storage facility known to man. Just build a box if it must be base isolated. Don't retrofit heritage buildings to do this unless you have more money than sense. And speaking of that, last annual plan, 2 more brand new covered swimming pools on budget, currently underway, when a new mega facility is about to open shortly. The Gardens and Families Tax, as one submitter has called it, for the excess water use is on its way. One size fits all, very even, but not very fair. And if you're talking about that approach, we're not actually that consistent with it either, because we've got a new targeted rate for heritage. That's supposed to be even, but the LTP is going to have it calculated on capital value. So by all intents and purposes, it's just general rates, yet it's fudged to look separate. There's a focus on environmental sustainability for this council, and rightly so, but I strongly suggest that concern for its financial sustainability should be added to that list. Residents are staring down the barrel of a rates rise of more than double the rate of inflation. These obscene and financially unsustainable rates rises also compound year on year, so that 5% average increase is already on top of what was unsustainable the year prior. This council, in this long-term plan, prioritises cutting ribbons over cutting rates. To address it's simple, you spend less and you borrow less, but this council's bizarre answer at almost every juncture is to spend more and borrow more. Myself and a few others have consistently advocated to take the save approach over the spend approach throughout our deliberations, but we've constantly been the minority. This LTP is financially unsustainable for our residents, and I won't be supporting it.
Mike Davidson.
Thank you. I think everyone's been acknowledged. I think one person that hasn't probably been acknowledged is the Deputy Mayor, who obviously did a lot of work at the start of the hearing, so thanks, Andrew, for that. Look, this is my second LTP, and the process has been a lot better. This was actually a really good document. It clearly says what our outcomes we want to achieve, and I think it attracted actually a lot of submissions. And the submissions, that they varied, the feedback varied, and actually I think the people are represented by the councillors in this room, and we do have different opinions. Some people say they believe in climate change, then everything else they say totally contradicts that, and they have a supporter on council that also does that. So that's good. But I think we've actually reached a really good balance. I see this has been a bit of a well-being LTP. It places value on our people, our culture, our environment and our economy. Environmental issues such as climate change mitigation, adaptation, biodiversity loss, waterway quality, they're front and centre, and they have received the much needed funding. And Council has also reinstated the full funding of Christchurch NZ, our economic arm. And we are investing in our core infrastructure. 75% of our transport spend actually goes into road and footpath network. And that's because we do listen. We do listen to the resident survey, we do listen to the feedback, and we adjust our budgets accordingly. And I think one of the things that actually stands out to me with our transport spend is actually our focus on safety. People, they should expect to be able to use our infrastructure and follow the rules and get from A to B in one piece. And what we have heard, and Councillor Scantrip mentioned, is communities have been telling us they want safe, quiet, slow streets, and this LTP will actually help deliver that. Of note, I look forward to receiving a paper in due course on a new cycleway out to the northeast of Christchurch. It was quite a consistent theme through the LTP that area is missing out, and obviously when the cycleway program was developed back in 2013, there wasn't the growth there, and that's why there was no cycleway to that part. It's been an interesting time since I've been on council, and the quick the amount of times people have a go at cycleways and the cost. And I think sometimes we need to remember actually that the cycleways it makes up just 3% of our total capital spend. And of that 3%, nearly 70% of it's actually returned back to us as a subsidy from Waka Kotahi and central government. So while people are quick to question and to criticise us on the cost, actually it's not as much as people make it out to be, and the benefits you receive from people cycling.
Yeah, sure.
It's fantastic.
Thank you. Andrew.
We've taken a number of savings and efficiencies in this plan, and it's worth reflecting that these are on top of significant savings we took in the annual plan last year. And most of the significant cuts and savings that we've made were well supported around this table. There are some cuts that I'm really glad we didn't adopt. Some wanted to, and to quote, if there had been a larger group of councillors willing to do so around this table, we may well have. I went to the Aranui Library one Sunday afternoon, and what I saw was a warm, dry space that was in really good use. People using computers, people in that warm, comfortable space, secure in an environment they were clearly enjoying, people in large numbers, people who quite possibly had neither a computer nor a warm space at home, younger people, older people, people clearly making good use of a much loved and really valuable facility. One freezing cold Friday afternoon, I went to the Riccarton Bus Lounge. And what I saw there was a room full of people in a warm, dry, secure, safe space. People with bus information right in front of them, and people with the bus right in front of them when it arrived. What got me back onto the buses was the new bus interchange in the central city. And the bus lounge in Riccarton is the exact equivalent in that part of town, and without it there would be some that just would not be confident using public transport. If we're serious about public transport, then we need to be serious about good public transport facilities. I also went to the Akaroa Library, where we're currently providing the service desk, which we propose to close, to that community. And what I saw was a small space, a constrained space, in an unsuitable situation for long-term delivery of that service, well below the standards which are delivered in other parts of the city. And I talked to local residents about what they thought a proper service looked like, and their desire for that to be reinstated back into the old post office in Akaroa, where it used to be until late last year, right in the centre of that community, where it can now form the basis of a community hub. I went and looked, but as a council, we also listened to people that came and submitted to us, and I'm pleased that as a result of that, we're not closing the Aranui Library, or in fact the Sumner Library on a Sunday. We're not closing the Riccarton Bus Lounge. We're not closing the Akaroa Service Desk, or Littleton for that matter. I saw, I heard, and we collectively listened, and we made changes, good changes, rather than arbitrary cuts that cut to the heart of what makes this city a great place to live, a place where there's equity, a place where there's something for everybody, a city that we all should be proud of. There are also opportunities. The Otakaroa River Corridor, the opportunities presented by biodiversity, ecology, environment, water quality, the opportunities for best practice change in the way that we travel, the opportunities to take advantage of the significant investment the city's already had in capital.
Thank you. And just wrapping up this debate. I would like to thank all councillors for participating both in the process but also in the debates that we've had over the last couple of days with a sense of coming to a conclusion that we can all build on. And I just want to go back to the letter of expectations that we set and just remind people that we wrote this before COVID-19. We talked about the resilience of our infrastructure, community, environment and economy is critical to the vision that we have for our city and the foundation of the LTP. And in this context, building resilience means building capacity within communities to prepare for an uncertain future, whether that means climate change adaptation, disaster risk reduction or sustainable community development. It is clear that climate change leadership must be treated as the overarching focus of the risk and resilience agenda. We did identify then that Christchurch was at a crossroads. We can look back on the emergency period followed by the immediate focus on getting things fixed and rebuilt. We now have the chance to look forward to the city we want to become, one that is vibrant and dynamic, a great place to live and get around, and a great place to visit and do business. These things are never perfect, but we've got a really good foundation, a really good platform to build on. We've got a chief executive who's providing leadership within the organisation, absolutely committed to achieving that future for our city and for our place in the wider New Zealand context. We are the second largest city in New Zealand. We are really the capital of the South Island, and we, along with the rest of the Canterbury region and the South Island, really do offer, I think, the country significant benefits in terms of the investment that we can bring to the wider context for both our economy and our future. So thank you all very much, and on that I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no.
No.
That is carried, and if you could put up your hands for no, and then we can record that as a division.
McDonald, Major, Q.
Yep, and now so that is carried, and I will move on to the remaining resolutions. Now, which ones do you want to separate? It's probably easier if you just
Tell us which ones.
vote against them.
There are various ones in there, but I don't want to waste people's time.
Well, I'm happy to say put the motion. So I'll move the motion, seconded by Deputy Mayor Turner, and I'll put that motion, all of the motions, to the conclusion, to 23. I'll put all those. Those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And if you'd like to if you want to identify the ones that you want to.
Yeah, so
It's just
should we go through on?
they're different than what they are in the paper.
In the public-facing agenda.
So it's like,
Is it easier to go through the numbers that are on
Yeah.
screen?
do you want to just
Okay.
Okay.
17.
So 17, 18.
Sorry, it's just the numbers have changed from what's in the
Okay,
in
I'm
the
just
paper,
going to
so I
go
just
through
want
them
to just
one by
make sure I know.
one. So 17 is authorise the Chief Financial Officer to make the amendments required
Yes, that's
to
fine.
ensure that it aligns
Fine.
with the resolutions.
Yep.
18
Gets
authorises
to
the
borrow
Chief...
more. No.
So no to borrowing.
No.
Number 8.
No to borrowing.
Yep.
So that's
So put up your hands for 18.
Against 18.
against 18.
Against
To
18.
borrowing more.
So we've got 5 again.
Yep.
If you just call the number and not read it out.
19.
19.
That's okay.
That's
Okay.
okay.
20.
20A
20A
for Jack.
for Jake
And
and Melanie and Yanni.
And we have
For the whole 20. Just put me down.
Can you
Sorry?
speak up?
Just put me down against 20.
Just against 20.
Me too, but it's possibly for different reasons. But
Yeah.
Maybe. Just be clear. So Jamie's
on
also...
paper, we're
Okay, so hang
going in
on.
the same direction.
If we're just going to do this, so we've got Jake just for the uniform general charge, we've got and Melanie, and we've got Yanni and James.
Yeah, well, do you want to
Catherine.
just put it against the lot? It's not
Yeah.
going to matter.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Unless it changes.
No,
So-
yeah, I need to make sure we get them all.
so
All
we've
of
got-
20, could you please, Roger?
Oh, I see.
No,
what
well,
you're
if
saying.
Sarah's
Okay.
going to do what she's going to
Yeah,
do, then
because
we're going to need to
there's
go
some in
through
there.
separately.
Okay, so I'm fine with the Echo Health Hub and the CCBA, but
Okay,
then
so
the
we've
capital
got
value
all of
ones, no.
20 for the 5 plus.
Well, I'm happy to give you the specifics if you want to do that. It's just hard, as James says, because all the numbers
No,
have
no,
changed.
plus Yanni, and it's the against the uniform annual general charge for Jake and Melanie.
Yeah.
Is that right? Got it?
Yep.
Right, we've got it.
Yeah. No, it's the general rates B.
Sorry?
M for me. M for Mike.
Where's M?
Scroll down.
Yeah, but
We haven't got to that yet.
we've got 3 carve-outs.
Yeah, this is all 20.
We're going through them one by one. Can we please just focus for 1 second? We're almost there. So, we've got 20 A and B. Can we go through?
Then we've got C
Are there,
next.
can we scroll up, please? Sorry. Sorry. Right.
C.
C. We've got all of the ones who have we've got all of the ones who are voting against the lot. We've got
and B.
individual ones on these. Is there anyone on the water supply targeted
C?
rate that isn't opposed to all of them? So I've got every 5.
So
I've got
sorry.
6 on everything.
Yeah, sorry to be a pain, Leanne, and I don't want to drag it out in the slightest. The issue we have with voting against everything is that Sarah and Mike are going to vote against M, which may then change the composition of the Heritage Cathedral rate. So we're not opposed to M. Yeah, but I think Yanni as well. Yeah, nice try.
So for me, it's the targeted rates that are then being charged on capital value. It's the oxymoron rate. It's not a targeted rate, it's general rates. Being
Go for each
charged
one.
as
If
targeted
Sunny's
rates.
falls over, then we go
Can
for
we
each
just
one.
get a printout, like, of the new numbers, and I'm happy to go through and just give you that.
Basically, just the wealth taxes.
Can we just go through? Okay, so we've got C.
No, keep it C.
Right. D. E. F. G. H. I.
Oh, aye.
I. Right. So who's against I?
Hands up.
Well, it's,
But you're
that's-
against them all. Don't
No,
put up your hands again.
Leanne, we're going to go back to overall.
Yes, I know, but I'm an overall.
Didn't I change them? That's what we're doing. It's not complicated. We're going to go
It
A
is
to M, and then you're going to go back to overall number 20. So for clarity, members, my recommendation is to you go through the individual elements A to M. We list down exactly who is voting for whom, and then we'll come back to the overall position.
yeah.
So that everybody is clear and we're not confused. Okay?
Can we get a printed out copy of the revised numbering?
No, it's on screen.
Look. No. Right.
Yeah, the A's are the same, it's just the number 20 is accurate.
So we got to I.
Okay.
And then they stop.
So I
people.
is the excess water supply commercial volumetric targeted rate. So is that
That's your
Hands
commercial,
up.
not the residential.
Commercial volumetric charge, aye.
No,
that's fine.
okay.
Oh, Yanni, yeah.
Can we go up, scroll?
J next.
J,
J.
residential volumetric.
Show you residential.
Sorry, I was for I. I'm against J.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hands up for J, please, against. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There, both got that, thank you.
Right.
Okay.
K,
No.
L,
Heritage targeted rate at capital value. Yes.
So L. Got 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
M,
M. Right.
M for Mike.
Yes, against.
1, 2, 3, 4.
M.
M for Mike.
M.
Special Heritage Cathedral targeted rate. Hands against, please, up.
This is a flat rate.
1, 2, 3.
Don't knock it out.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No, 1, 2.
You've got 5 people.
It's only 5.
You've got 5 people.
You're going to pay for it out of rent.
No, it's only 5.
It's only 5. It's only 5.
Which one?
M. 5 only.
Right. Okay. M is, that's fine. It was
Yeah.
5 people. N, this is the Arts Centre targeted rate.
On capital value.
Yeah, capital value.
Right, okay. Aaron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Central City Business Association targeted rate.
In favour.
All in favour? An Akaroa Health Centre targeted rate.
In favour. So then go back to overall position.
Yeah, so now the overall position,
Back up to 20.
so I'll put item number 20 as amended. No, not amended, unamended. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
No.
That's carried. And hands up for no. That's 5 plus 1.
So it's Yanni.
Yanni. They will all be recorded.
Then vote
as
against all of it, then we don't have a long-term
as
plan. We can go back and get it right.
those. They will all be recorded as opposing.
And then I'll change my vote.
They'll be recorded as a division, each one of them.
Just that one of the names. I'll just have that hands up again for 20 then. Or
So
It was
Goff, Johansson,
the 5.
Chew, McDonald, Major, and Kewen.
Yeah. Right. And so now we move on to item 21.
Okay.
Which is that, which is the
Commercial.
payment by instalments with the set dates for payment. So that's item 21. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. And then the excess water supply volumetric targeted rates are due for payment on the following dates. So I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Yanni?
Nearly there. 23.
23. Resolves to add penalties to unpaid rates as set out in the resolution. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Was that a no, Yanni? And Aaron. Right. So that I believe, are all of the resolutions that are required for us to meet our obligations. And is it at this point, staff, that I sign the letter of representation with the... no, it's just me that's signing it.
Read mine on this occasion.
So, before the meeting is concluded, I've signed the letter of representation for the audit of the long-term plan. And again, acknowledge you, Andy, and thank you for the service that you've provided to our council. And on that note, can I also thank the Chief Executive and all of the staff, you know, especially want to acknowledge you, Peter, and the teams that sit in behind you, supporting you. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to the comms team as well, who put a lot of effort into making the consultation document readable and accessible to people. And thank you to all of the councillors for the work that you've put into it as well. It's been a very long process, and very soon we'll start it all over again for the annual plan. So there you go. Something to look forward to. So thank you all very much. And on that note, could I invite Councillor Daniels to provide us with a karakia whakamotu.
Ka pai tātou, ka mau te wehi, mō tō mahi, mō the city. I'm about to say that our discussions and decisions have been made now, and we're about to carry on our journey, which is going to be forever. So in that I say, kia wā te ai te ara, kia tūru anō, I'll start again. Ka whakairia te tapu, kia wā te ai te ara, kia tūroki whakataha ai, a haumie, huie,
Kia ora. Thank you all very much, and I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you.